Welcome to More Than Dentistry, where your hosts Evert and Waldo discuss life, dentistry, and everything in between with dentists around the world.
Hello and welcome to the More Than Dentistry podcast.
Okay, well, welcome to More Than Dentistry. This is the first podcast for 2020.
Yes.
And welcome, Altus, here in your man cave.
Yeah, thank you, Waldo. Thank you that we can do this evening. Yeah, it's always a pleasure just chatting a little bit, and hopefully we can discuss a few topics that's of worth to the listeners. We try and speak about things that's the normal things that we all sit with, our normal lives. That's why it's called More Than Dentistry. Is talking about how do we do life after dentistry, how do we do life to enhance our dental life, to be happier, to be more productive. There's so many facets of our lives, so many facets of being a dentist, and I think hopefully through our chat we can just light up a few points that can be of worth to the listeners.
Yeah.
So and on that point, we want to get feedback from you guys out there.
Yes.
And please subscribe to the podcast. Please write us a short message just saying, I enjoyed this, or maybe just a topic that you guys would like, or a guy that you would like us to interview.
Yes, certainly.
So that we can be relevant to you guys out there, So I'm excited about the year. I'm excited about the podcast. I'm excited about the year. But I said to you earlier before we started, it's also a part to get myself motivated. And we were talking about taking holiday.
Yes.
So maybe you can just say, let's start the topic. What did it mean to you to just take a break over this time?
Yes, I must say toward the end of the year I was starting to feel it. And I was actually getting a little bit more anxious when I went into work. I was probably getting more tired quickly. But it's also probably because of the anticipation that you're going to take off. You're working harder and harder, and you're driving yourself almost into the ground. Well, that's definitely not healthy, but there is a way that we need to get into a place where we can get the balance between working and gearing ourselves to take some holiday. And while it was great to I took about 2 weeks off, which was fantastic, just spending some time with family. And I really made an effort to not really be on my phone, be present with my family. It's not always that easy. Ate a hell of a lot. We'll rectify that in the new year.
Classic.
Just vegged in front of the TV. Probably not always very productive, but definitely it was good to just shut down. It's definitely, for me, the end of the year is some time for reflection of what has gone past, what can we do in the new year. But last year I spoke also a little bit with Nathan, and I said I don't have too much goals and things for this is what I'm going to do in 2020, but my thing was just to continue with the work that we started off in 2019 and just continuing on with that. Because I don't think the year date is so important. My big thing that I think is important is what is your mindset that you take into the next year.
Yeah.
Because if your mindset's not going to change from the one year to the other, the year's also not going to change. If you're going to have a negative mindset in 2019, your 2020 is probably also going to be the same, unless you make a difference within yourself. It's not the external environment that's really going to influence you that much, unless you are going to allow that to happen. So I've gone really off track now, but just the matter of taking some time, some holiday, and just relaxing was really good. I was away for about a week with family, and I came back. Usually I don't like spending time at home in a holiday because I always uneasy, think I need to go back to work. But for the first time in a long while, I actually felt quite comfortable staying at home, doing some things at home, and that I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's also, I think it shows some growth as well,
Yes.
Going and being comfortable wherever you are, not needing to necessarily go to the spectacular place, but being comfortable just being at home. And there's also reflection in holiday that you don't get in the year when you don't have time off and you're so busy in your life that you don't get to reflect, which is nice when you're on holiday, is to reflect a little bit on your life. When we spoke to Ashwin Kassan recently, and you also spoke about it when you had an injury
Yes.
and you could take off 2 months or something like that, and the same with Ash when he was ill last year. That time when you get to reflect a bit on your life, and so there's different types of holidays to take. There's probably the one to take with your family, and then there's one that you can probably take just to take some time off, maybe go on your own somewhere and just be on your own and reflect a bit on your life. So I think one has to make time for those different types of holidays, but definitely make time to set goals and to reflect on your life.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. But you were a little bit more on the flip side, in the sense that you didn't take much time off. You were actually working through the festive time. How was that for you? And how are you approaching this year? Are you ready for the new year, or do you still feel that you need to take some time to reset? In my mind, it sounds to me it can be quite hard beginning the new year full of energy.
Yeah, I think each person's circumstances are different. I did take off a week, but it was December time is a difficult time because you with family the whole time, and it's rushing from the one point to the next, so it's very busy. But I like what you said about the mental space that you're in, because I was actually at a good mental space the end of this year where I wasn't feeling that tired. I think it's got to do with things occupying my mind that was positive, and I think that's where what you said is very true about your mindset that you're in. I mean, end of the year, everybody's talking about holiday, and you almost knowing that you're going to take holiday start to feel like you've just got to do it now. When you're not doing it, you're not feeling it. But to get back to the point, I think holiday is important, especially in our job where we work for ourselves and we don't give ourselves enough holiday. I think what we as dentists need to do is budget for holidays. I think we should start in the beginning of the year, have like a holiday fund and put away money so you get enough rest.
Yes.
Because you're somewhere you've got to have that energy to take you through a year, and you can't wait until it's depleted, because then it's almost too late. When you're down and out and tired, then it's too late to try and revive it. But for me, what was good last year is going on courses, changing things around a little bit. It was all good mentally, and that's something I would want to push through in this year again.
Yes.
Is go on a few courses, do things that shows growth. For me, when I do something that I'm feeling like I'm growing, then it helps me mentally quite a lot. A thing that we were talking about, that small habits that you're doing, the small things that makes a difference. The one thing I heard the other day is just to be persistent is a way to, at the end, you just keep on doing the right thing, and then somewhere you'll be lucky.
Yeah.
Versus being constantly brilliant. Because sometimes we think we've got to be constantly brilliant to achieve something, but we just need to be persistent
Yes.
and somewhere lucky. Then
Yeah.
so it's those small things, waking up in the morning, being friendly with your wife, feeding your kids, taking them to school, being a good dad, getting to work on time, applying yourself when at work to be friendly, being good to your staff, getting home, greeting your wife nicely, helping her in the house, playing with your kids. It's those small things, brushing your teeth, flossing, whatever, It's those small things that you just be persistent in doing good. And some way you'll be lucky, just because it's that's just how life works. You just keep on doing the right thing, and suddenly you look back and you've done something well. So for me, we were speaking earlier, for me, the small things that I like to do as making a fire when I'm feeling off. A while ago, what I did was I wrote down what's the things that really makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So it's small things like making a fire and going for a jog, that feeling that I get after that. So that then I can manage my time and just make sure that those things are part of my life. So that makes a difference to me. But I think I don't have much more that I can say about that now. I think that's what I want to do in this year, is just focus on those small things again and do the small things right.
Yeah, I think what I spoke about was mastering the mundane stuff.
Yes.
Doing the basics right. For me, it's when I get home at night, it's easy to go home and just say I'm tired and so on. But the kids haven't seen you for the whole day. They're now still on holiday, and they're still in a holiday mood. And I made a conscious effort this afternoon when I got back home, is to just leave my phone at the front, not even looking at it, greeting the kids, and then see what they're up to and really engaging with them, and getting dinner ready, and just the leaving your ego and just enjoying family life, because that's probably the main reason for us who is in a family environment why we actually work. So that was really important and that's something that I really want to carry into the new year, is just getting away from the electronics. When you're with your family, and the boys and myself, we now, just before bedtime, we now alternate between doing some Headspace, which is just an app, and it's actually nice to see the kids engage and actually asking for this, because they can already experience that this is making them a little bit more calm, to a sense that they fall asleep easier, even though it's hot and humid in our PE. Or we do some Romwad, which is like a yoga practice, which they love. And so a little bit of a physical thing, but not strenuous. That's the stuff. And just getting back and waking up early in the morning, and making my wife some coffee, and then going for a workout. So
it's amazing, it's amazing that, talking about this, that you can start these practices at such a young age, which we never learned.
No.
We still learning every day about how to just survive in life and survive with stresses, whereas you can teach kids from a young age certain practices that will definitely benefit from that.
Yeah, well, we had more of a religious upbringing in the sense that we'd probably sit as a family and do some Bible study and so on. But for me, we still do some of that things with our kids, but how much of that do they really understand? Is to get to a phase where you can really actually just calm down, or start switching off, or know where you are, and then it's easier to maybe connect with a spiritual component, which I think is really important.
Exactly. I think a young kid, at their age, they're so young that for them to understand spiritual things or just, difficult, so exactly that. You just teach them how to become quiet and those things exactly, then you can open yourself up to those type of things. To get back to a little bit of dentistry, talking about the year, and what do you from a dental point of view see yourself doing this year? Is there anything that you would like to achieve or that you would like to focus on this year?
I think, I actually had a big year last year in the sense that I moved practices. That was a big thing to do, and there was a lot of system changes, and those things do take some time.
Yeah.
But this year I really would like to start getting the engine to that locomotive to make a few more turns and quicker. So to optimize some systems within the practice, and I'm going to take a little bit of a step and saying on a Wednesday I'm not going to work in my practice, I'm going to work on my practice. So actually taking time out of work and not physically working with patients, but working on the maybe administrative stuff or working on those systems processes, which I think is really important. And that if we can streamline more processes within, because it's a big practice and there's a lot of moving parts, we need to see that everything works. Otherwise, if there's a log jam somewhere, it's going to hold up everything. So that's really important for me. I love some continuing education. I have some speaking engagements already for this year.
Good.
Which I'm quite excited about. Hopefully I can talk a little bit easier and not be so nervous.
Yes.
I think it's already gone better in Durban the last time I spoke. And just on and up.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think all these things that's seemingly peripheral has got a big part to play in our lives as dentists. It's starting to speak out, starting to just speak about our profession and building a dental community, being able to, like you did last year already, connect with quite a lot of people in regards to speaking, and that's quite a privilege also to have.
Yeah.
And I think also talking about that is that not to underestimate the chance that you've got to influence. And I think for everybody we can influence. Everybody that's listening to this are influencing people. As a dentist, you're influencing so many people daily.
Yes.
You've got a chance to really add value to people's lives by being kind to them. I often find myself when I've got to go to some medical practice being anxious myself, even when I've got to go to a sister to have blood tests or whatever, that I feel a little bit anxious. Then I realize that patients are feeling that on a daily basis, going to just dental practice and not knowing what's the outcome gonna be. So we can all influence people, and we've got to use that. And then also saying we can influence other dentists, we can help other dentists. We need to start putting out the whole idea of not being separate from each other, but saying we can help each other. Maybe there's a guy that's struggling a little bit, that we can help those guys and really change our environment in regards to dentistry.
Yeah.
We're already lucky in that sense that we have got quite a few people, and people are quite open towards each other, but we can just keep on building that.
Yeah, I think it's keeping on with the momentum that we have.
Yes.
And talking to one another. That's really, really important. So and the other thing I wanted to also, you said also something that, what is it that, how are you going to add value for your patients?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the point of value adding. For myself, because we recently were changing the look of our practice a little bit, and my wife's often mentioned it to me that that patients, that their perceived value is a lot of the times by what they see, not necessarily even how good a dentist you are, but walking in the practice, it's nice and clean, it's a nice environment, it smells nice, the small things, you're friendly, those type of things. So I just wanted to add on to that, the value that we add to patients is so much more than just good clinical work, but from being friendly, and we've got to uplift our staff. We've got to send them on courses. I think that's a challenge. We're always just focusing on just building ourselves up, but maybe looking and seeing where there's an awesome course for reception area, or a course on whatever, and just building these people up, because at the end that adds value. When somebody walks in and you've got a receptionist that's just got skills to handle this guy and to make them feel comfortable, to handle sticky situations, to handle whatever you late or whatever, to handle those things. So to add to our staff and to build them up might be a challenge to do, but all of those things adds value to our patients.
And it's worth the investment to do that.
Exactly.
And like Johan always says, is investing in people is probably the best investment that you're going to make. And I think when it comes to our reception, it's so important. That is the first thing that our patients are going to see. And I said that if I really need to go and re-look at hiring new people to be in the front office or the reception, is to actually get someone that's either worked at a telecom reception, because that's probably the hardest thing that you can ever do, or getting someone from the hospitality industry, from like a major hotel, who actually knows, because reception is receiving your people coming in, making them feel at home, and then carrying them through the process of how the practice actually works. Just lying down. Way back when I said the best thing, the thing that you can do is when the patient walks in the door, just stand up and greet them. And we were taught this in school, where we were standard 7, and that was the big thing that the principal told us, is if there's a adult walking into the school, you stand up and you greet them, and you're on your way. And that was something that was almost just poured into your DNA, and there's so much positive stuff coming out of that.
Exactly, that makes such a huge difference. It shows so many things. And then also the other thing I heard that reception is also so important is in regards to telephone skills, is seeing them more as a converter of converting a phone call to a patient in the chair, yes. Converting a phone call into an opportunity to really they've got an opportunity to really help the patient into a direction, and they're setting the tone for the whole practice. So there's so many things that we can do, and that's the one thing that I think is investing into other people, investing into our team of people that's working with us. So it might be something that the listeners out there can also, you know, think about, is maybe looking at at somebody coming to speak with your staff, or people, or looking at courses that you can send your staff to, so that they can become better and feel like they're empowered.
Yes.
Because sometimes we expect things from them that they can't provide. You can only provide the things that you are, call it, schooled in, or you've got the skill level. So sometimes I think they might feel a little bit helpless, in the sense of you wanting them to do something that they just can't do.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge for this year, is to really invest in them.
And then you guys have actually employed almost another 2 new dentists within the practice. That's also not a challenge to have. It's a challenge to have new people in the system, but it's also, well, elevating them. That's a big thing.
It is a big thing. We've all been there. We're starting out, and it's quite a big challenge to step into the clinical role as a private dentist. So it's a nice challenge for me. I quite enjoy the process of helping these guys. It makes me feel like I've got some value to add to them. So it's challenging, but it's also quite nice for me to do. And you know, like all guys starting out, it's wonderful people. It's wonderful. They really want to do their best, and they really want to help people. And so it's just to guide them and to help them in the process. Like I said, we've all been there, and it is challenging, but it's to help them through this process. So I'm quite looking forward to that, and to see how they grow in the next few years. But yeah, I think that's where you just realize again that we've got a role to play in each other's lives, and still, you know,
and what a privilege that is.
It is a privilege, yes, exactly. It's such a privilege, and it makes your focus. It's what, you know, what you focus on in life. That you know, it's more than just a business. It's you living out your being. So that's what it's nice. I think this phase that we're in now, we're starting to live a little bit in being a dentist. Where I remember not long ago, I was still, probably about 5 years ago still, I was really not wanting to even talk about dentistry outside of 85 type of thing, you know. Because it was almost like I was keeping myself distant from it. But as soon as you take ownership of it and really realize that it is such a privilege, and that you can really help people and get past yourself a little bit in that whole thing, but just really just owning it, then you realize that how wonderful it can be. And so in your whole being, you can just add value, and people have still got so much respect for dentists. People just really still look up to people that's a dentist, and so you can just enjoy that part of it as well, but just stay humble and help where you can, you know.
One last thing, if we think it's the beginning of the year, there's probably quite a few people going into community service now this year, and there's a lot of guys coming out of community service and hopefully joining a nice growing practice or a place where they are. Do you maybe have a message for those two groups, if we can divide them in?
I think the guys that's going into community service, the guys that I've heard about that's done the best in the community service years were the guys that still continued education. That still went and did courses, even though it was a course on endodontics, but they're not really doing root canals in the clinic that they're working at. But do you still do continued education and connect with dentists in your area that's in private practice, going and observing what they're doing? Connecting, I think, is one of the biggest challenges of life, but I think it's very valuable.
Yeah.
Just from a young age, is connecting with people in your industry, connecting with people, going to SADA meetings, going to all these things and chatting with people. What would your advice be then, if I can throw it back to you, for the guys that's then starting, that's just finished their community service?
And joining a private practice. I think, for me, I think there's two different guys going into private practice. You'll have one of the guys going maybe into a practice that's already really, really busy, and as they walk in there, they start seeing patients. They don't have really time to settle down. They just need to go. And then there's the guy that's going in, or lady, that goes into a practice where it's maybe a little bit slower. You are seeing patients, but not that much. You maybe have some free time. I was in the position where I was busy for a little while, but I also had quite a bit of spare time. And I do think that's probably more valuable from a learning perspective and a long-term perspective, because your trajectory is probably not as fast, your income is not going to grow as fast. But if you're going to invest in that time that you have, and not just going to go and drink a cup of coffee and not doing anything else, but actually taking the time to, once you've extracted a tooth and you're not really up for all the root canal stuff, maybe putting that in some plaster and actually practicing the basic stuff, and taking the time to do these mundane things that will help you in the long term. Whereas I actually think it's sometimes a little bit more difficult if you just get into a practice where you work from 8 to 5 or maybe later, but you have boatload of money, but where's your time? Hopefully someone has an answer for me for that, but how are you going to progress yourself just getting out of just being the ordinary dentist? Because I think this is also a platform that we want to not just talk to dentists, but we want to say, listen, let's elevate the whole dentistry field. Let's get people to do better work. And to maybe just give a little bit of inspiration to say to that guy, listen, if this is sometimes just slowing things a tad down, it's easier to diagnose. It's actually the amount of times that you're going to redo something is actually far less. Because I also think there's a little bit of a bell curve, that you get into a phase where you run into optimal practice. This is the amount of patients that you can handle every day, and this is where you work. That's your sweet spot. If you just go over that, then we're going into a negative territory where you can't handle everything. We are getting a little bit more comebacks. Now you actually need to work to redo. That does not just cost you money, it costs you time, and it costs you a lot of stress.
Yes. I agree with that. You know, if I can give myself advice looking back, spending more time on diagnosis and treatment planning, you know, instead of just jumping into treatments. Because sometimes you miss a lot of treatment that was still necessary, and by not planning, you lose your way a little bit. Whereas I think that's quite a nice tip, is to give to dentists, young dentists, or anybody really, is just spending a bit more time on planning what you want to do, discussing that with, even if it's just restorative dentistry, it's just looking at the whole mouth, taking a Panorex or whatever, and just looking at the whole planning a little bit on what you want to do and the process of that, and discussing that, and getting used to taking photos of patients on a normal consultation, even is taking normal photos, maybe taking models. You don't even have to charge for those. You can just get into a habit of doing a decent treatment plan for the patient. Because once you do that, then you've casted models, and you look at that, and you look at the photos, then you suddenly see, yes, this guy's midline is completely off, or he's grinding away some teeth. Or on the models, you can see so many things. You can see the smile line, you can see these things. Then suddenly, you present a treatment plan that's got whitening in it that you didn't even see the first time. But looking at the objectively, when there's not this pressure of now the patient with you, so you can maybe see the patient for the consultation, and maybe get them back to come for a scale and polish the next time, and discussion. So then then you can sit there with them, look at their models, they can hold their models, they can look at their own photos on a screen. It makes it so much. Then the second time, I find that if the first time I see a patient, there's obviously the first time that they're there, it's your first interaction with them. The second time, it's just so much easier. There's already a little bit more warmth between the two of you,
and trust
already. It's just a different person. So it also doesn't feel like you're pushing them into something if you're just being too much in the beginning. But I think people value that. People value that you've gone through the effort of just showing them these things. And who else can discuss their smile? They a lot of the times have got things that bothers them. And now you guys are sitting there looking at the photos and the models. It's not intimidating. It's quite a nice discussion. So doing that, that's what I've now taught one of our dentists that started there. I said to her start learning how to do that. Even if it's on normal checkups, just take photos, do these things, have discussions with patients. Learn the art of communication. Learn the art of speaking in terms that the patient understands, and that you can see in their eyes that they're with you and they understand the treatment. Because as time goes on, your skill level will improve, your confidence will improve, and those things will make you a better dentist. So you're just as good as what you're able to almost communicate to the patient, because otherwise they won't, they're not going to do the treatment if you can't communicate well.
I think we can end it off here. It was lekker.
Cool, Waldo. I think we're looking forward to a year. And we really want to just encourage our listeners once again to subscribe, to leave us a message saying, I want to hear you guys speak to this guy or that guy, or give us some feedback. We'd love that.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Waldo. Cheers.